Hey guys, Triple B here with the upcoming rotation in April, trying to give you guys a couple of lists to be ready for when that changes and get a head start on the next format. Today we're going to be covering Charizard EX, which has proven to be a top tier contender since its release thanks to its inbuilt energy acceleration, which lets you get 3 energy from your deck, put them wherever you want. 2 of them onto Charizard, you can start attacking immediately, doing 180 damage, and scaling up by 30 for each prize card your opponent's taken. So as the game progresses, it lets you go toe-to-toe with other powerhouse Pokemon. If you combine these with a fan favorite Pokemon that's been with the series from the start, not to mention giving it the dark typing that's fitting of its edgy attitude from the anime, it's no wonder why people want to play this deck. The best part is it should be a top tier deck the entire time it's in the standard format, and with the upcoming rotation in April, you won't even have to worry about Path to the Peak getting in your way anymore. There are some other changes coming with rotation though, which we'll be going over today, so you'll be ready when it comes around. Now, since Charizard is a very versatile Pokemon, we'll be covering 3 different builds that you can be playing in the next format. All 3 builds use a similar core of staple cards and Charizard lines, being a combination of 2 Charmanders, one that hits for 30 damage to help set up or potentially even clean up knockouts into certain matchups, Roaring Moon, and another that has 70 HP, dodging double knockouts from Sableye, because, well, if they go 6 here, we're just outside of range, and it's really helpful to be able to do that. It can also bump stadiums if you're in a pinch. The Charmeleons for the list, there's going to be 2 different ones as well. One that has an ability preventing effects of attacks done to it, so it's not going to be impacted by damage counters, or Devolution TM. There's also one that has 100 HP, being outside of range of Greninja's attack, which would normally do 90 to it. If it's on the bench, even if you don't have a Manaphy, you'll be safe. Which Charmeleon do you prefer though, or are you going to mix it up a little bit? Standard staples like Pokemon Search, Draw Power, and Gust are present in all the lists, but as this is a deck update video, I'm not going to be going in too much detail as to what those do, so I'm kind of trusting that you'll have an idea of what's going on with them. If you're not familiar with those cards though, there's nothing wrong with that, just let me know in the comments down below and I'm happy to answer any questions you have, or do a video covering them if there's enough interest. One new staple you should hear about though, if you haven't already, is Buddy Poffin. It's essentially a Battle VIP pass, but just for 70 HP Pokemon. Biggest thing about it though, it's not limited to just the first turn of the game. It's an instant inclusion for any evolution deck, and you can bet it's going to be in all these builds today. Obviously, it can't get your V Pokemon, so a little bit of a difference between Battle VIP pass, but it's going to get your Charmanders, and it's going to get your Pidgeys, which, well, it's going to segue perfectly into our first build we're covering today, which is Pidgeot EX. This build has seen success since release and focuses on accessing key pieces as you need them while you are trying to get 2 stage 2s online though. It does sound a bit intimidating at first until you read Pidgeot's ability, which gives you a solid consistency as once per turn, you can just grab a card out of your deck. That means if you have a rare candy, a Charizard, and a Pidgeot in your hand, you're going to want to prioritize the Pidgeot, as you can get into the other rare candy for the Charizard off of its ability, or even just grab a supporter card like Arven that can then get you that rare candy and a tool to scale up your damage, being either Choice Belt or Defiance Band. Helps you take a knockout, so it's clutch. There is also the upcoming Ace Spec that boosts your damage by 50, but we're going to be using Prime Catcher in this build instead, giving the deck both an extra switching option while also gusting up an opponent's opposing Pokemon. As it's on an item, you can still use a supporter for turn or even search it out with one like Arven. Pidgeot also offers a great attack option for you to use, as it can help set up or clean up knockouts, doing 120 and bumping out a stadium. It also has free retreat, making it a great pivot option when something's knocked out. You just pop it into the active, take a bit of time to think about what you need to do, and then go from there. Another search out option adding consistency to the deck is Luminion V, coming in clutch by grabbing you a supporter card when you put it onto your bench. It's great to get into Arven's early game, but ideally you're going to want to save this to grab a boss to finish out a set. Since it is a V Pokemon, you can also put Forest Seal Stone on it to grab another piece out of your deck as you need it if you're in a pinch. But ideally, we're going to put that on Rotom V, as that's something that we do want on our bench early in the game. Can't really attack on the first turn of the game if you're going first, so just end it by using Rotom V, and even if we go second, there's very few attacks we can actually declare, so by using Instant Charge, end your turn, build your hand size up, it's really good. If you do want to declare an attack on the first turn of the game though, we'd be going for Pidgey's Call for Family attack, helping you establish your bench when you're in a pinch, and if you haven't got any Charmanders out, as you can get 2 basics from your deck, put them right onto your bench, then the following turn, since they did come out at the end of your turn, you can actually evolve them up immediately, which is clutch. The final tech Pokemon in the deck is Mew EX, giving you another great free pivot Pokemon to go into, and also some added draw power. Its ability lets you draw until you have 3 cards in hand, so if you just burn through your entire hand, use Mew, you're fine, or late game if you get Iono'd, you can hopefully get out of it, it's not too bad. Also, since this attack uses colorless energy, you can even use it as an attacker in certain matchups by powering it up with Charizard. It can be helpful early game when Charizard isn't hitting very high damage, but your opponent presents something that does, like Giratina V-Star. You can copy it, do 280 damage, or maybe there's Greninja in the active. Copy it, do 90 damage to two things, mess up their bench. It's pretty clutch. Any repercussions of the attack still apply though, so be mindful when you're doing that, as you may have to lost zone or discard energies, and that's not very fun. The final attacking option of the deck is Radiant Charizard. It gives you a great late game attacker that can be powered up for just 1 energy if your opponent's taken 4 or more prizes. You can technically use it early game if you want to use Charizard to power it up, but it's pretty rare you'd want to do that because you're going to be committing a lot of energy to it. Unless it's knocking something out to end the game immediately, then like, hey, that's cool. Radiant Charizard gives you a great option if you're in a pinch and you don't have another Charizard EX setup, though, is kind of the main thing. It also helps skew the prize trade by only giving your opponent 1 prize instead of the 2 that Charizard EX would be giving up. Now, with rotation coming up, the deck is obviously losing some stuff as well. First of which is going to be Mew from Celebrations. It was a bit of a roll of the dice. You'd put this in the active, hope to hit an item card early game. It's alright, sometimes you'd pop off, get a VIP pass, establish your bench, sometimes you wouldn't, and it's just like, well, it got knocked out, and now Charizard does 210, so it was fine. Doesn't seem like that big of a loss for the deck, and it's still going to be a top tier contender. The other card on the way out is Battle VIP Pass, which is easily replaced with Buddy Poffin, which we've already covered is coming out in Temporal Forces. It doesn't get your V Pokemon, but does do a solid job establishing your board for your basic evolution pieces, and techs like Manaphy and Jirachi. Temporal Forces also gives us Mist Energy for protection against effects of your opponent's attacks, making it great to counter both Giratina V-Star's Star Requiem and Roaring Moon's Frenzy Gouging attacks. As it's a special energy, it can get cancelled out by Temple of Sinnoh though, so it's not a fail-safe solution, but does make them have to work for it instead of being an easy knockout. We also have a Pokemon League HQ for a similar reason, making it harder for your opponent to declare attacks with basic Pokemon, so things like Miraidon and Roaring Moon will be tricky to get powered up early, or we can punish them in the late game if they've burned all their counter stadiums. What do you think of this first build though? Does it have what it takes to stay a top tier contender into the next format? Keep in mind, this is a early list, so it's likely to adapt as the format develops more, but I'd love to hear what tweaks you think it could use. Now this next build cuts the double stage 2 line in favor of a more streamlined option by using stage 1s as your support Pokemon. We have things like Bibarel as a draw engine. Its Industrious Incisor's ability is great to draw cards, letting you get into a 5-card hand once per turn, letting you focus your supporters on utility instead of on draw power. Combining this with another helpful rodent in Squovit, which allows you to just put your dead hand on the bottom of your deck, draw into 1 new card, then you refill your hand with Bibarel, it's a solid combo. Bibarel's also great for defensive against Iono, as late game you'll be put down to like a 1 or 2 card hand. It's a little rough, just draw out of it, so we can be using it ourselves and preventing our opponent from totally bricking us at the end of the game. There is another great supporter for Bibarel to go into though as well, being the newly revealed Cryptomaniac's Deciphering, and no, it's not going to help you get rich off Bibcoin. It will let you search your deck for 2 cards and stack them on top of your deck though, and then you just draw into those with Bibarel to guarantee you key pieces or ensure we're drawing into a card that you want on the following turn. The other stage 1 we'll be using in the deck is Toadscroll, as its ability prevents your opponent from getting cards from their discard pile into their hand, which is great for decks like Chin-Pao and Goldengo, which are looking to be top tier contenders next format, especially with Path to the Peak on the way out. They both want to be reusing energy from the bin with retrieval cards. It also helps block Pokestop, which is seeing a lot of play, as they have to discard the cards before they actually go into their hand. Do have to apologize, as I should have actually said Toadscrolls, plural, as we're going to be running the EX as well. It prevents effects of attacks done to our Pokemon as long as they've got energy attached to it, so it's a great counter for Roaring Moon, Giratina, Sableye, and Devolution TM. But unlike Mist Energy, which we used in the previous build to block those things, it can't be stopped with a Stadium card since Path to the Peak's on the way out. And Charizard can easily get energy onto our Pokemon as we need it to block those effects with its ability, so it's a pretty solid combo. With so many stage 1s in the list, we'll be running Evolution TM to help get set up very quickly. We can use Arven, grab Buddy Poffin, grab Evolution TM, set up our board, then immediately evolve it up. We can get our Bibarel, we can get our Charmeleons, we could get our Toadscroll. If we get Charmeleon the following turn, as it's a stage 1 already, we just chuck a Charizard on top of that, evolve, we don't even need rare candy. It's a really, really solid combo. For secondary attackers, this list also includes Radiant Charizard, as the previous list did, as a great late game attacking option to help skew the prize trade a little bit. It also has Entei V as a solid attacker you can use if your opponent's trying to capitalize on the grass type weakness of Charizard, while also being a great option to quickly set up. As it's a basic, you only need 2 energy to attack on it. When it's in the active, we can draw a card, chuck an Evo TM on it, evolve the board. It's a pretty bulky guy. Yeah, there's a lot of reason to have Entei. Also, it's in the logo of this channel. I may be a bit biased. Plus, we can check for a Seal Stone on it. The other difference with this build is it uses Maximum Belt to boost up your damage by 50 instead of going for the Prime Catcher. Means even if our opponent hasn't taken any prizes, Charizard can be doing early breakpoint numbers, doing 230 to knock out basic Vs and EXs even before they've taken a prize, taking out V-Star Pokemon after they've taken 2, taking out Stage 2 EXs after they've taken 3 or 4 prizes instead of at 5 at the end of the game. The added power that it gives seems solid as the deck already has a number of Gust cards, and often the target you want to hit is already in the active spot, so this is a great option to use over Prime Catcher. What do you think of this Stage 1 centric deck though? Does it have too many pieces going on, or has it got just enough to give it correct answers to all the questions that the meta is going to be answering? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, but now let's get into the third and final build, which is an updated Lost Zard deck. It's a personal favorite of many people, including friend of the channel Gazerbeam, unless he's off that and back on the String Cheese Man or the Gooey guy again. Regardless, I felt it deserved a spot on here. It got top 4 to regionals recently, and I feel like it just kind of flies under the radar. This build gives you flexibility with attackers. By being able to use Cramorant in the early game, you can put pressure on your opponents, knocking out small basic Pokemon to start the prize race early. It's a nice bonus as you'd never be able to get a Charizard online on the first turn. It also helps by being able to set up or clean up knockouts for Charizard before you're one-shotting large targets. You also have access to Sableye in the late game, which can help clean up or set up knockouts, and you can even use Radiant Greninja to potentially knock out 2 things at once. Plus, it's also great draw power. You ditch an energy, draw 2 cards. It's solid. You also get additional draw power with Comfies, which are going to be helping to set up your Lost Zone engine while building up your hand size. This build remains largely unchanged. It switches out Battle VIP Pass for Buddy Poffin, same as the other ones. Escape Rope's on the way out, but you just switch that with Prime Catcher. The biggest loss for this deck though is the Raihan, which was useful to get into key pieces while also charging up attackers. So it might take a bit of hit in consistency compared to the other builds, but does still seem like a solid contender. Where this deck excels is its attacking options, but unlike the other builds, its draw engine won't be very forgiving, so you'll be lost zoning pieces throughout the game. Be careful with your resource management if you're gonna give this list a go, just a heads up. Of the 3 versions of Charizard we covered today, which is your favorite though? Are you Team Pidgeot, buddies with Bib, or do you prefer to take wins with the Lost Zone? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm always keen to hear people's thoughts on the different playstyles. I'll be trying to upload post-rotation builds once or twice a week, so if there's any decks that you think should get bumped to the front of the line, always keen to take suggestions. Speaking of, you should check out these decks we've already covered if you haven't yet. Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to keep up with the shenanigans. Till next time, stay golden, you Goombas.